Well, good afternoon. We're happy here to welcome Dr. Jamie Alexander from Boynton Beach into our Patient Prism Studios. And he is known, one of our directors here, Debbie Bush, for a very long time through our connection with Pankey. And we wanted him to come here into our studios because we wanted to get the solo practitioner's viewpoint in dentistry. I think as we see dentistry is changing, there's a lot of corporate dentistry coming into play. We're seeing growth of corporate dentistry significantly, but at the same time, there are independent practices who choose to be independent, who want to preserve that independence, and they believe that that's the right way to do, and that there's two approaches to anything, and none of the approaches is wrong or right as long as patients are getting the right type of dentistry in an affordable manner, in a fast manner, and without it being a transaction, right? At the end of the day, dentistry is really about changing people's lives, and it all starts with the mouth, right? It all starts here, and then it goes down. So I think the purpose of this podcast is really to inspire young dentists who are coming out of school, or people who are in private solo practice, who want to retain that identity as a solo practitioner, and on the journey of what it takes to start a practice, and where does that journey take you, and what how do you go about kind of building a great practice, right? And what kind of people do you hire? How do you survive all the competition? And he's got an interesting take on his relationships with specialists that he has built, because I think that forms the referral source for him without having to compete with them necessarily, and without being an adversarial relationship. I think he has created the symbiotic relationship where he does become the quarterback, for lack of a better word, who decides what's best for his patient. And if he is best at doing that, then he is going to do that. But if somebody else is going to be better than him in doing that, and that's the philosophy we've followed in all our businesses, right? If there's somebody better than us in whatever we do, then our client should go to them and then come back to us, right, to do what we're best in the world at. Instead of trying to be all to everybody, I think why not look at our people's interests first. So we have this whole slogan that people before profits, John's wearing that shirt, is about you got to put people first, and you got to put patients first. And what that means is that what are their needs? What are their interests? What's the best treatment plan available for them? And if I'm not the right guy to do some or all stages of it, then I need to be able to go out to specialists and get them the treatment that they deserve, because it's all really about getting a difference in their life. So I'm excited because you're here. Jamie is a University of Michigan alumni, so a great school. He is part of Seattle Study Club.
Sure, absolutely.
And
Spear Study Clubs.
And the Spear Study Club. He's done the Pankey Continuum. Yes. So one of those guys who believes that education is continuous and continuously spends time learning the art and the science of dentistry, which is amazing. And I'm excited because I really would like him to guide people who are in the business today, or who want to get in the business today, that want to stay independent, of what is it like, So let's start talking about your journey a little bit. Sure. How did you start?
Well, bringing up the point, which I think is a very important point, and that's something that I really like about the profession of dentistry, is you can choose. Not every profession really has your ability to choose what you want it to be. So whether you want to grow and be a manager and grow lots of practices and sell that off, or do whatever you want in dentistry, you can do that.
All right.
If you're excited about that, and that's what makes you happy, and that's the piece that makes you excited throughout the day, you can absolutely do that, and that's wonderful. If you want to sit and be a technician and sit and try and make sure that every crown margin is just perfect, and
right,
and not say that couldn't happen in the other model, but whatever makes you happy, you can do in dentistry.
Right.
And that's something I find exciting.
So when you started to practice almost 15 years ago, you're in Boynton Beach.
Yes.
And what was it like? What was the environment like? how did you go about? Did you buy a practice? Did you start de novo? What was that journey like?
Sure. So initially coming through my late stages in dental school and then into my early parts of practice, I learned, fortunately, early on as a third, fourth year dental student that being a restorative dentist, having a Pankey style practice was right for me. I was fortunate enough to go in and sit in a philosophy of dentistry lecture by Dr. Becker, who was the director of education at the time at the Institute. As a third year dental student, I sat in on a Friday lecture and I said, you know what, that looks right to me. And so early on, I thought that was going to be my right approach. I didn't know if I wanted to be a prosthodontist or restorative dentist or what that was going to be for me. But once I sat in that lecture, I knew, you know what, that's for me. Okay. And whatever I could do to start into that world would be appropriate. And I also thought that going out and hanging a shingle and becoming a very high, really respected restorative dentist, you can't do fresh out of school. You can't.
That's right.
It takes for your reputation to become something, you need to become something. So you have to learn. So I went and I was an associate in a practice in Boca Raton, Florida by a Pankey dentist. And Pankey and many other institutions trained. Sure. And he became a close mentor. And for 3 years, I was in that practice as an associate and then trying to develop a practice. Sure. And when I had started to then determine if I were going to stay in that practice or transition or what that was going to look like. And once I determined that, maybe transitioning out and buying a retiring dentist or a situation like that was going to make more sense for my own professional growth and business growth, then actually that's when I engaged Debbie and we started to look at how I might be able to do something with a website for myself and how to discuss this with the public and how to do that. And I purchased a practice and developed my first website, almost 10 years ago.
So you focused, on initially what type of dentist you wanted to be, and you wanted to be a restorative dentist.
Yes.
You wanted to have a more comprehensive philosophy than the one-tooth dentistry philosophy, right? You wanted to look at overall function, aesthetics, both sides, right?
Yes.
And then you started a practice, developed a website, started marketing, hired people. What were some of the initial challenges in terms of marketing, in terms of getting new patients? Because obviously you have an existing practice that you, and they have some active patients. Sure. And a lot of times we've seen I've been a CPA in this business for a long time, and we've seen practice and we've seen tremendous attrition. Sometimes the number of active patients are not active. Sometimes you get a list of active patients as 4,000 and okay, only 500 of them visited the last year. So there is that surprise. Were there any surprises when you bought a practice? Oh my God, I wish I had known this because I would have negotiated better.
You know what? Fortunately, I bought a practice that I deemed to be a fee-for-service restorative practice, and that's what it proved to be.
Oh, good.
So that was good. So I did actually buy what was on the table.
Advertised,
what was advertised.
That's fantastic.
Now, when you buy a restorative practice that has been in town for 30, 40 years, guess what? A lot of dentistry has been done. So the going in and doing full mouth reconstructions aren't within your initial patient base. So you still need to get new patients and have a reputation within the community to do that. That still takes time.
So when you did buy the practice, what percentage of your patients were in maintenance type of hygiene environment? Just maintenance, coming in, doing the prophies.
Okay, that's a good question. I would say that the true active patient count was, I would say, pretty accurate on our assessments initially. So let's say that we thought that there were, in the neighborhood of 1,100 patients. Sure. And I would say that number was pretty accurate.
But what percentage of those, it's not going back 15 years, but if you were to throw a percentage of what percentage of those patients, if you look at them from a hygiene perspective.
Sure. We're in active recare.
Where just basically all they were doing is coming every 6 months and basically in maintenance we call it maintenance, right?
Yeah, the vast majority of those patients.
So that's it,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And we talk about this quite a bit.
Yes.
When you're purchasing a dental practice, if vast majority of the patient base is maintenance, basically hygiene maintenance, coming, doing their 6 months cleanings, you're going to have to spend a ton of money on marketing to get new patients because you don't have much that you can make from that.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? And so did you realize that upfront, or did you eventually, the revelation came like, I think I need to spend more money bringing new patients into the mix who actually don't just need routine maintenance, but they need treatment. They need, they're going to need something than just the cleanings.
Yeah, I would say it took me about 2 years to realize that we needed to do more. We needed either more new patients, we needed more dentistry to be able to do in order to grow. That the numbers that were being done were not the numbers that were still being done, and that whether either the dentistry had been done or that we needed to get more. So that's what drew me to an initial set of marketing type of meetings, which based on my initial marketing type of meetings, I realized that in order to get patients to call and be able to do something with those patients, you got to have your policies and systems in order. Correct. So that when they call, that you're not fumbling over it and you can deliver, so they don't walk out the door or say no. So that's sort of when that all started to happen for me.
So when we talk about practice acquisitions, one of the first questions I ask the people who are purchasing the practice is, okay, you need marketing. That's great. External marketing, new patients. Have you fixed the internal marketing mechanisms in your practice, right? Because you've got all these treatment plans sitting there, and Debbie is an expert. She co-wrote the book on that. What Barry Polanski is. What is it? How do you evaluate what percentage of patients are still in that purgatory limbo of presented but not accepted? And what are you going to do to internally market to them? How are you going to motivate and inspire hygienists to have that conversation with the patient every single time? And so did you think about that initially, or again, did you have to wait? The reason I'm asking these questions is because I want dental practices who are starting out or who are buying to appreciate and understand that there's no one silver bullet in growing a dental practice. Sure. It's got to be done from the inside out. It can't be outside in. Oh, let's just spend more money on Google and that's going to magically bring the patients. That's not going to happen.
Sure.
You got to really fix the internal marketing first,
right?
With the great hygiene protocols and making sure that there is enough conversations happening in hygiene to move patients over.
So that's a great question. So I guess in a practice model like mine, the way that had been suggested to me by facilitators and mentors at Pink Institute was to invite patients into comprehensive examination.
Okay.
So in a practice model like mine, if we were seeing some dentistry that hadn't been done, whether it had been proposed and not accepted, or outstanding dentistry that needs to be done, is to engage the patients. At the time, we didn't have as easy access, or at least I didn't have intraoral cameras at the time, which has really been very helpful to bring awareness and education and emotion to patients engaging in their care. Sure. But I'd say at the time would have been, we're noticing these things. We'd like to invite you to spend a little bit of time with us. We know that you haven't had a lot of personal time with Dr. Alexander. We'd like to invite you to spend a little bit of time so we can get to know you better and get to know a little more about you and more about your mouth. So that invitation goes out, and coming out of that, you have an increased amount of wow for your patients. Wow, I've never had a dentist spend an hour in my mouth. Some patients don't want that. I mean, you learn that over time.
You're right.
Some patients don't.
They seem that you're being pushy. You're trying to, especially if that problem was never uncovered by the previous guy.
Sure.
Then all of a sudden, oh, you're this new guy. You're coming in and you're telling me I have all these problems and nobody ever told me that. So there's that level of skepticism that every patient has, and then all of a sudden, how do you deal with that, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point and good question, and particularly in my philosophy of, educating patients that there are problems that are out there besides active disease, besides broken teeth and gum problems, that maybe there's this thing of like your teeth wearing down or things chipping that maybe isn't pain related, and for patients to become aware of those things and it being knowledgeably important to them, that's a struggle. It's still a struggle today. That's a challenge to get patients to appreciate that actually is a process that we should manage.
So did you have to make any changes? What kind of conversations did you have with hygienists when you took over? Were they absolutely on the ball, or did they need some additional training, or did they need some motivation? Because again, we love focusing on hygiene in all dental practices because I think it's where a lot of action is. And a lot of amazing things start in hygiene.
Yes.
And if your hygienists are not on board, and they're not trained to be leaders, and they're not trained to have those conversations, and their handoffs are kind of poor, then it reflects everything else that happens afterwards. So did you have to kind of say, oh my God, I got the perfect team, everybody's great? Or did you have to sit down with some of them and say, guys, we really need to focus on this comprehensive exam, and we need to really motivate our patients to move forward? And what kind of conversations we're gonna have with these patients?
So that's a good question. So the first thing I did when I came into my practice with my existing 2 hygienists, one of which is still with me today.
Oh, nice.
Is and one was with me for about half that time, for about 5 or 6 years. I expressed to them my philosophy of practice, how I think doing excellent dentistry, doing excellent care, managing patients, caring for patients, doing the right thing, doing your best at all times is important to me. Nice. So hence, what can I do to support you doing your best care?
Fantastic.
So that was my first couple days is what can I do so you can do your best care?
Guys, this is what I think this is the moral of this. If you listen to any part of this video, this is the conversation that we would want every dentist to have with their hygienist is what can I do to make it better for you guys? What can I do to deliver better quality of service? How can you help me? Because this is leadership when you ask everybody else to join with you and not say, oh, I know I'm the dentist. I know I know exactly what I need to do, but to involve them and saying, what can I do to help you? I love that. I love this philosophy of leadership because I think once that collaboration happens between hygiene and the dentist, I think a lot of magical things happen.
Right. I agree. So we immediately made some pretty significant changes based on that.
Okay.
Just on the bare fundamentals, which could have a lot of different, business practices might say different things about this, but I went to my hygienist and I said, listen, this is very important to me. I really want to really take very careful diagnosis and care for our patients' periodontal treatment. We need to chart our patients' gum tissues, health, gum levels, all this. I want to do that every year. This is, I think, something that's important to me.
Okay.
Also, we need to make sure that we're keeping up to all these other standards, which I think are important. We'll be able to talk about it more over time.
Right.
What do we need to do to support this? They said, Doc, I do not have enough time to do that. All of that.
Right. Okay. So how did that?
So
what did you do?
So logistically,
time?
so we you know what? You suck it up. You cut one hygiene visit out a day, and I said I am open to doing this if you feel it's going to improve your patient perspective, your patient's engagement with you. If you're going to be able to gather this data so we can best care for our patients, I'm open to trying this. So we went from 45 minutes to an hour. It allowed me a little extra time to meet my patients. It allowed my hygienist some time to explain who I was it allowed them to be able to gather this periodontal information. And with that time, we were able to have a couple extra minutes if they had needs to be able to maybe be discussing comprehensive dentistry.
This is exactly people before profits, right? This is exactly you sacrifice short-term profits because you want to do what's the best interest of the patient, and you are cutting out a hygiene visit, and you're not looking at, oh my God, I'm going to lose all this revenue. Instead, you're focusing on, let's spend extra 15 minutes to do what's right, and in doing that, you're earning the trust of the patient.
Right.
And that's why I think we need more dentists like you in this country who truly think like that. It's absolutely a delight to hear this, that you gave up revenue in order to serve the patient better.
And I think that crosses practice models too. I don't think that's mutually exclusive to a restorative practice who the pace is different. I think that can be done in many different models of care.
Sure.
Whether it's going from 30 to 40 minutes. If you give yourself a couple extra minutes so your patients just know you care about them,
right.
that globally can, I think, have a lot of positive impacts on your practice.
And then you said that you're mostly a fee-for-service guy.
Yes.
And you do take a couple of PPOs that are good. And you've increased prices over the course of years, right?
That's true.
And I think the reason what kind of pushback have you had when you've increased prices? Was it?
I mean, not very little. I did it in a very organized way that was described to me by people that are much smarter than me, that are involved in the coaching and consulting tracks and how they promote it. By taking, I ordered the universally available fee schedules that are out there in the world per zip code. I picked an area that I looked at where my fees were compared to where it should be per my zip code. And I said, this is where I should be around. Where am I on one side or the other? And if a patient really gets hairy about a fee, which doesn't happen a lot, but if it does every once in a while, I'll say, listen, I put myself around the 80th percentile. If someone is in that mindset and they're very number and analytically focused, I'll say, I just put myself, I feel like I'm at least 80% better than the other dentists in the area, and I'd put my fees right there. So you'll find a few dentists more than me, you'll find some dentists less than me, but otherwise I'm a good dentist and this is where I should be. But
again, because you changed your philosophy from revenue to impact that you were having on patients, it didn't really matter as you increased fees. You didn't lose any patients.
Not that I'm aware of.
And it was insignificant. So obviously you were able to add more revenue without any pushback because you started earning trust of these patients by giving them the time, giving them the comprehensive treatment that they deserve, and spending time with them and educating your hygienists and your entire team members to kind of be the champions, be the oral health champions.
I guess when you're specifically talking about fees, like they talk about in best business practices, is there's flexible and inflexible fees. So the more inflexible fees, like bite wings and hygiene and your hygiene related visits,
sure.
And your preventative ones, you don't jack them up. You kind of do it in a massaged way.
Right.
Those are the ones that patients notice because they're the ones they see 2 to 4 times a year. And if you slide those up too quickly, or you're doing it in an irresponsible way, then those are the ones that the front desk sees. So, and even if you don't change your fees, some patients are just going to comment anyway. So some patients just remember what fees were 20 years ago. They're going to say it every time. So you just, I remember when my cleaning was $50. Okay, well that was probably in the 1970s, but okay.
That's right. And then as you evolved your way of practicing, you started becoming not only a better clinician, obviously as you practice more, but you also started becoming a better business owner, and that process is both clinically and business wise you can constantly grow, right? There's no end to that.
Sure.
And you've kind of developed, we should talk about that a little bit, is this the symbiotic relationship with the referring specialists.
Sure.
What is that like, and how does a general dentist who's practicing on any corner in America develop that kind of relationship where the specialists don't feel anyway threatened by referring you patients?
Sure.
They actually like to do that because there's certain things they just don't like to do, especially in the restorative arena. That's why you're a restorative dentist, and then you become kind of their partner. So how did you build those relationships with specialists?
Sure. So number one, it always helps to have excellent dentistry. Let's start with that, being good at what you do. So that's really, if they're referring you a patient or you're referring them a patient, you have to say, why do you refer to this particular specialist? So my criteria for referring to certain specialists is because I think they're going to do the best job.
Okay.
I can say that. I can look at my patient and say, this is the best person for you for this reason, and know it.
Sure.
They can see it through my heart, and they know that.
Sure.
Likewise, if they're going to do the same thing, you got to step up to the plate, and you got to, be hitting the ball a lot. And
That's right.
And you may not have to hit a home run every time, but you got to be hitting very consistently, and you got to hit a lot of home runs. So you got to do good work,
right.
And they got to see it.
And
that's the next.
And they have to appreciate and respect you as a clinician.
So in seeing it, you have to show it to them. They have to see your work. They may not always see it. So, for example, let's say you refer a patient to a particular oral surgeon or periodontist.
Sure.
To have an implant placed.
Sure.
And you do your best to explain the pros and cons and everything to your patients so they're well educated about the procedure.
Sure.
So when they go to that practice, they say, they're a well-qualified referral, meaning they're not clueless. They don't know
Sure.
why they're there.
Sure.
They know exactly why they're there. The appointment was easily made for them.
Sure.
You give the specialist everything they need to be set up for success. So they're basically just there to meet the doctor to make sure something weird isn't there.
Sure.
And so it's an easy case sell for them. And after the work is done, you go back and you share that information back with them. So oftentimes,
would you send pictures?
Yeah. So you want to. So what we do, if we finish an implant case,
okay,
we'll take a final X-ray.
Nice.
We'll take an occlusal photograph showing the occlusion with
Nice.
marks, and we'll take a lateral photograph, and we'll send that to the specialist and to my laboratory technician. Because that's really the third part of the team that always gets left out. They only look at stone models all day long.
Right.
How unrewarding is that?
Right.
So when they see something in vivo and live, and my surgeon realizes that there's actually three pieces of this team, it creates a lot of value. So I feel proud about it. Now you got to be proud of your work to be able to show it off.
Right.
So
right.
You can't do that if you can't hide anything. There's no hiding anything. You can't hide things on an X-ray. You can't hide things on a photograph. So you have to be proud of your work. So if you're proud of your work, you can show it to the patients.
Right.
Let them know you're sending that to the surgeon.
Nice.
Usually the surgeon might call you to do that. The reason why they do that is because most dentists don't do this. So I do this to make their life easier. So they may not even need to see you for that follow-up visit in a month. And you know what? And some surgeons know that I do that. And guess what? Now they don't need to see their patient for a follow-up visit to check for cement because they know that there is no cement because I already checked for it. And they can see that.
And
so it saves them time.
Saves them time.
And their staff sees that too. And they realize, oh, now I don't have to schedule this appointment and deal with all that. So for many different ways, it develops a relationship. And it makes their life easy.
Right. And then do you go visit these offices? Do you visit them? Do you go to lunch with them, dinners with them?
Yes. Well, I'm in study clubs with all my specialists.
Oh, you are? Okay.
So every specialist that I work with, I study with. And I say that Debbie and I are now in the midst of actually promoting that piece because I think that's a strong piece. I do tell my patients that, but I think that's a strong piece. So every surgeon, every endodontist, periodontist, oral surgeon, that orthodontist that I work with, I study with. In one of the 2 or 3 study clubs I'm involved with, all my specialists are contained within them.
And how often are you in a study club meeting? Is it once a month, twice a month?
I'd say I have, between the few different clubs I'm in, I'd say I probably have three a month during season. So for 8 months of the year, I have about 3 a month.
And how long do they last? The meetings last?
Couple hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you guys what is it like? So you guys go there. Do you take notes?
It is academic. So it depends on the structure of it, because each club is a little different. Sometimes we have live speakers.
Sure.
In which we have a dinner and a speaker. Sometimes it's case study, where we watch videos and discuss different aspects of patient care.
Sure.
Sometimes it's with technology today, we can do live feed, where several study clubs are watching a particular dentist or other professionals talk to us about different things. So it's a variety of subjects. And the common denominator is I actually get to shake hands, say hi, talk to not only the specialists in the community, but my other dentists in the community that I can say they're my friends, and it's a sense of community that I feel good about.
This is fantastic. So you do definitely recommend dentists coming out of school, they're getting into, whether they're going into corporate dentistry or into private practice like yours, they need to engage themselves in some sort of a study club and mentorship program.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. A study club, I would say for me, because honestly, going to an institution, and there's lots of good ones, whether it's on the East Coast, the West Coast, wherever it is, it's very expensive. It's a lot of time out of practice. It's a large expense, and not to say I don't think it's important. I did a lot of that. However, you can get a lot of value out of being in a study club. You can talk to specialists. You can talk to other dentists if you have a question or a problem. And many of these clubs also have laboratory technicians that are involved in the group. My main technician that I've worked with for some time now isn't actively involved with our study clubs, but there are technicians there too, and you get all aspects of care. Sure. And if you have a question, someone there is to answer it. You're not there by yourself.
And although it's not particularly a C credit, it doesn't really matter. Education is education. It doesn't matter whether you get a little certificate or not at the end, because you're learning, right?
Sure. Yeah. You're learning, and oftentimes I find your topic is whatever it is, but sometimes I'll pick something up just from talking to one of my colleagues. You know what, I just got this, or I just started using this particular company for that. Nice. And that impacts my life and has nothing to do with why I came there, but I learned something so monumental that I did that before I engaged in digital radiography.
Sure.
And besides whatever the people who are coming in my office are trying to sell me, the guys in my study club all used a particular sensor, were tickled pink with it, had it in practice for over a year, and still were happy with it. And that's the system I went with, not the one that that had all the bells and whistles and that everybody was trying to sell me. I went with the one that all the guys in my group said, you know what, I'm using this thing, it's fantastic, because that's the real scoop.
That is great, because then it helps you go past the marketing noise and the advertising noise, and really figure out what's working and what's not working, and and getting opinions from others,
your colleagues,
and your colleagues.
That's not why I went to that meeting. The meeting was not, and for all I know, there was a company that was sponsoring that meeting that was selling their product and sponsored the dinner. I don't even know that. It could have happened. I don't know. So I think that's something that's pretty meaningful.
So now that you've finished 15 years, you've kind of, in Malcolm Gladwell's words, you're probably about 10,000 hours that you've spent practicing dentistry. How does it feel now? Do you feel that you're ready to take new challenges on? And what kind of new challenges are you ready to take on? Are you ready to take on new patients? Do you want to expand your offerings? Do you want to increase the number of operatories? What is it? What are your goals for the next 10 years?
That's a good question. So I guess you could say in my practice model, in a restorative practice, I would like to see less patients.
Okay.
I'd like to do more complex cases. I'd like to spend more time sitting down and doing complex work. I'd like to be referred complex work and refer out complex work. And I'd like because those technological challenges that I've had early on are getting just a little bit easier. Sure. Where you've seen it, you've seen how to do it. You could do it a little bit better. You could do it with a little bit less stress. You could do it with a little bit less, sure, empty pit in your stomach when you're doing something.
Sure.
You just feel a little bit more comfortable doing it, and that's something that I think would be good. So for me, growing more operatories, not necessarily. I'd say to continue to develop a restorative or a prosthodontic type of practice where you're doing crown and bridge and work and continuing to work with other specialists and that they work with you for those needs, I would say would be a continued goal of mine.
So your ideal case, would it be to get a patient that needs hybrid dentures and they need full mouth extraction and they need treatment planning on what's the best way to, what kind of implant supported appliances are we? So would that be an ideal case for you to be able to figure out what's the best solution here? And do you like doing full mouth restorations?
What I'd say is I'd like to be in the beauty of dentistry and general dentistry is being able to have all of it. So I enjoy the relationship with patients. I enjoy, yes, being able to see those cases through and have success, but I also like to care for patients who need a single crown. I like to be able to do a filling every once in a while. So, and seeing patients in hygiene and seeing some of my kids' friends float through the office and talk, whatever the kids are into at the time, so all of that's fun. And that's something that any dentist can create because you can make whatever your practice be whatever you want. So doing complex cases is fun. Doing general dentistry to me is fun. Right. Doing specialty procedures, I don't find fun. So I choose not to do it. I can't do it as well as my specialist. Absolutely. I haven't put in those 10,000 hours in doing more root canals. Right. I haven't put in my 10,000 hours doing implants. I haven't even put in 100 hours in,
Right. And so you kind of do what you're best in the world at, and then you let somebody else who's best in the world at that, let them handle that.
And philosophically, how I believe, and that's what I enjoy. It would stress me out to do something different than that.
The last question I want to ask you is about what are you doing now to acquire new patients? What is it that, because obviously you want to attract a certain type of patient.
Sure.
And it's not, and you said you do enjoy doing extractions and fillings, but if you had to choose a type of patient, you would want a complex restorative patient that had some problem that you could solve. What are you doing in terms of marketing, or are you trying to think about those things of like, what do I need to do to get the message out that I am this person? Because obviously in this video, I've kind of uncovered who you are, what type of dentist you are, what type of patients would be ideal for you. Imagine if this message was out to the community that you were in.
Sure.
I think more people would want to come to you for those type of cases. And I think your marketing needs to be congruent with who you are, because at the end of the day, we feel, I've been in dental marketing for over 5-6 years now, and we feel that all you have to do is communicate why you exist and what is it that is your purpose in life and why do you wake up in the morning. And it's beautiful to hear from your mouth that I love all aspects of dentistry. I love talking to my children's friends and talk to them about what's going on in your life and their lives. So you're truly interested in, and it would be wonderful from a marketing standpoint to bring this goodness out to your community of showing that, my God, this guy is not just some dentist who's just trying to give me the treatment that I would need. He's truly interested in our lives. So have you looked at marketing from that angle in terms of the why marketing? What Simon talks about.
Yes.
It started with the why. Yeah. Why marketing?
Sure. That's a good question. And I do think that to my best ability, I put that out there by virtue of my website, by virtue of any of my blog or social media posts.
Sure.
I do think that my message and my message enhanced by Debbie is congruent with how I feel.
Sure.
And we try and put pertinent things out there about current ideas in dentistry,
Sure.
how I feel about dentistry. And oftentimes, and we know this, before someone's going to call your office, they will be on your website.
Correct.
They will absolutely be on your website. Now, what drew them to your website, that's variable. What do I do to draw people to my website? I don't have an active platform to do that outside of search engine optimization. So
Sure.
just organically through web search of a variety of different keywords,
Sure.
we try and get people to find me if they're looking for a dentist. They like at Advanced Yellow Pages. But as far as other types of media and marketing, I have not chosen to engage in those, whether it be by print or radio or TV
or pay-per-click
or pay-per-click or mailers. I've chosen not to do that.
Okay.
Even though I do think, even for restorative practice, there can be value in that. I've pretty much invested my marketing budget for 8-9 years now
Internally.
in website development and internally. And as we all know, patients go on your website. I had a patient just this week that was referred by a specialist, and they intentionally didn't want to put the specialist in a compromising position because they're, smart individual. And they said, please give me 3 names in the area. I don't want to, pin you down to one name.
Sure.
But give me 3 names of people in the community that you think are good dentists. So, I think pretty nice of a patient to do that, not put the specialist in a peculiar position. The patient went, and what did they do right out of the bucket? They went online and searched these 3 names.
Absolutely.
One person didn't have a website.
Okay.
That didn't bode so well for that patient. And the patient said, I don't know who this person is. And I said, they're a fantastic dentist. They've been in practice longer than me. And they're a fantastic dentist. She goes, I wouldn't know that. I said, that's true. And they searched somebody else, and for whatever reason, they didn't like the message that was on their website.
The message is important.
So my message was actually what we were just talking about, and what I've been talking about today is how I feel about dentistry.
It's fantastic.
That my philosophy, and they engaged with that, and they thought I was the right fit for them. And they came in because they had a crown that broke, and they were dissatisfied because that had recently been done, and they left, and they scheduled their appointment. And there was a no-fee consultation that we did. A little longer than I would have preferred for it to be because they had a lot of questions. But if I do a good job on this crown, I just earned a patient for life.
That's a great attitude to have. And I think I think this is exactly the philosophy of dentistry that I've loved to admire in so many people that I've met across the country is genuine care for your patients and genuine interest in their lives and genuine concern for their not just their teeth but just their overall health. And then again, there's a whole movement now with oral systemic that's going on, and I'm sure you're somehow part of it.
Sure.
In that, I think that's going to be a great movement going forward in that space. So I think you're going to be an amazing leader for a lot of private practitioners across the country to understand. You can develop an amazing restorative practice and not sacrifice your principles. Treat people with respect and kindness. Develop a great team. Inspire your team to perform at their peak, and not have to worry constantly about how many new patients I'm getting, but the type of patients I'm attracting to my practice, because you're totally focusing on what Jim Collins talks about is great dentistry. He doesn't talk about dentistry, but he talks about greatness, and
Sure.
greatness is focusing on what you're really best in the world at, looking at what you're most passionate about, and looking at what drives that economic engine around that, and that's your little hedgehog principle.
Yeah, sure. And good to great. Absolutely. Just focus on the things that you enjoy and that you're best at. That's what I try and do. And you know what? There is a place in a growing, in a growing world of more corporate dentistry and large groups, there is still a place for a private practice. There is still room for mom and pop.
Absolutely. And it's good to know. And I think we, as Americans, we all need choice. We want to be able to go. It doesn't matter where it is. We want to have several choices and options.
Yes.
And people competing for your dollars but because not everybody wants the same thing. And not all of us want to eat the same hamburger.
Sure.
We want different types. We get attracted to different types of providers. And I think
I won't provide a service quicker or possibly less than somebody else. So that's not the space that I can adequately compete.
And that's perfectly okay.
Yes.
That's perfectly okay.
Their crown is not going to get done quicker. It's not going to get done the same day.
Right.
It's not going to get, and there's a lot of people that's very important to them. And there's places where people have machines in their office, whether it be CEREC or the other ones that are out there, E4D or the other ones, where you can provide a crown the same day. And that could be the best service for that person because they're so busy that to sit down and have a 2-hour crown prep is mind-boggling to them. They could sit in an office for 2 hours. Like, what can happen in 2 hours? It's like an eternity.
Well, good. I think this is a good endpoint for our discussion, but I truly enjoyed this conversation because I talk to a lot of group dentistry. I'm involved in talks to DSO leaders all over the country, and it's nice to sit down with you as well and take this perspective. And it's beautiful. I think both perspectives are wonderful as long as you're delivering great patient care.
That's to the point. If you're doing good patient care
it doesn't
and
really
you're doing
matter.
things right, it really doesn't matter how you're doing it as long as the patients come first. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you again.